Your end. Hey, what's going on? Another episode of Trev's Trade Page. I'm the Trev. It's still too sweet. Alright, so normally I do this kind of video in August. August 4th, I believe, was the exact date I used to do this on, as evidenced by the last one I did here in 2021. So it used to be an annual thing, only it's been relegated to semi-annual or not at all the last 2 years. So with all that in mind, the executive decision was made, and now instead of doing this in August, we'll do this at the end of the year, every year moving forward. So you can count on that to at least come out of the trade page pipe down the road. So having said all that, let's turn this from semi-annual back to annual and review the cards in the personal collections. Let's check it out. So I guess it's important to lay out the priorities of the personal collections, meaning in which order are we pursuing what? And it goes a bit like this. Number one, obviously, is the Seattle Kraken memorabilia collection. Now, do remember, we did just hit 50 not too long ago. You can find that video right there. But in between that time and now, we brought it up to 60. So, not a bad thing to shoot for, I guess. I've also started doing a thing where I'm keeping track of how many cards per year. Now, granted, the Kraken collection is the only collection that has this on it right now. You should expect to see it all, and all of them. And I'm probably only being biased when I say this, but so far, this Kraken collection that I've built, it's pretty damn sick. Now, I'm not looking for any specific player, as long as they played on the team, and as long as there's a card on them, and as long as it's memorabilia, as in autographed, game used, or a combination of the above, I'm down. The only caveat being, obviously, they have to be in the Kraken uniform. If they're pictured in a different team uniform and have the Kraken logo on the side, not interested. Have to be in the uniform. So it'd be pretty interesting to see where this ends up this time next year. So next on the priority list, or 1A as we'll call it, Matt Duchene. Now, Duchene is part of the wife's collection, and really, the wife has the majority of the collections going on, as mine aren't player specified. The Duchene collection is also one of the oldest two that we have going on top of being the one with the most cards in it to date. Now, once you get past the rookie year, which in itself is pretty nice, it's just an explosion from there. Granted, after the rookie year is a lot of commons, inserts, parallels, stuff like that. It's not to say that some of the memorabilia, the higher end stuff, is hard to come by, because really, it's not. Now, what separates the Duchene collection from all the other collections is it's the only one that has one-of-ones. 9, if I remember right. I think she's not far off from 10, but I don't think she's there yet. And while some years were a bit smaller or slower than others, it really depends mostly on how prominently he was featured in whatever set. I mean, granted, some of these don't even have the parallels to them yet. But in the years he is prominently featured, i.e. 13-14, mostly because he was put with a lot of McKinnon, as this was McKinnon's rookie year, you get that vast explosion of cards in the collection. And 13-14 was just as good a year as 10-11 or 11-12 when it came to Duchene on the cards. At 14-15, you kind of see the dip. This is when we decided, okay, we're taking the break. We're having kids. With a lot of 15-16 being built after the fact. This from 15-16 down was bare when we decided to jump right back in. So a lot of everything from 16-17 down has been built from scratch. And some years are bigger than others. Really depends mostly on how prominently you're featured. But the beauty is always in the chase and trying to build a rainbow, if you can, along the way. such explains a lot of the OPG Platinums, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm trying to build for everybody that I've got on the collections. But you see the 21, 22, 23, 24 kind of slowed down a bit, but it's okay. None of the collections have anything in 23, 24, and 21, 22, 22, 23 weren't necessarily the most prominent as far as Duchesne was concerned. I mean, he was featured in some, but not a lot. But that's the Duchesne collection in a nutshell. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm itching to do that 400 video. It's just a matter of getting there. I mean, at 318 now, so we'll see what happens come the end of the year. Next on the priority list, at number 2, the Kraken Young Guns collection. Now, granted, this is a very young collection, as we only started it this year. You can find that video right there. I don't expect this one to hit the 50, 100 card mark anytime relatively soon. So, I mean, to realistically put a goal on this is almost kind of hard. I mean, as is, what you see pictured is essentially what's on the market right now as far as basic Young Guns is concerned. I know Cartier will be in Series 2, and if they do an extended, I mean, is Riker Evans going to be in that one, or what'll be in 23-24, or 24-25, or whatever. You know, the market for the Young Guns is only as big as the market they've made, and so far it's these three plus the acetate Colin plus the Cartier and their variants, as I am going for the variants as well. So there's that, but we'll at least have a goal for it by the end of the video. Up next on the priority is Nathan MacKinnon. Now this is the second oldest collection that we have working on, and we've only got it at 117, but hear me out. A lot of McKinnon's stuff is not the easiest to come into. Take his rookie year. I mean, that stuff keeps going up. You know, what separates the McKinnon collection from the rest of the collections is it's the only one that has in-the-game cards in it. But speaking of the rookie year, it's not to say that we don't have anything. I mean, granted, any card that has Duchesne on here is shared with the Duchesne collection for the moment, until we come into another Crazy 8s jerseys or Prime Trios or an MVP one-on-one signatures. I mean, the thing is, you don't essentially always have 3 bills that you can throw at it. I mean, if you do, great. But it's not to say that we haven't come into anything that's relatively, you know, hard or difficult or not worth coming into. We just come into a lot of base, a lot of inserts, a lot of parallels, and very few memorabilia, but again, it's McKinnon. And I mean, you really wouldn't think that there was too much of a gap in between 15, 16 to the present day, as a lot of what's come into the McKinnon collection to this point has been traded for. I mean, there has been the odd exception where you're picking up this or that or the other off eBay, but you're really picking it up for relatively inexpensive if you're not hunting game used or autographs. And again, it's not to say that anything bad has come out of the McKinnon collection, just a lot of in the binder, not a lot in the one touch. And again, nothing starting 23-24 yet, but I'm sure we can fix that. Next on the priority list is Cale Makar. Now, I know, I mean, who isn't collecting Cale Makar? I mean, that could explain why, you know, there's only 17 in this collection, but at the same time, the Makar collection is really back and forth. Some days we're collecting, some days we're not, but I think from this point, we are collecting Makar, and what we have in there, I mean, it's still Makar, so that's something. But rookie year, don't expect the big things unless you want to pay out the nose for it. But we at least have a jersey in this collection, so there's that. I mean, yeah, it's not the most alluring collection right now, but give it some time. I mean, we're working on it. We'll get to there to some point eventually. And lastly, on the priority list, the Colorado Avalanche memorabilia PC. So this is pretty much done in the same style as the Kraken memorabilia collection, as in it's game used, it's auto, it's a combination of the above. The only catch is they have to be pictured in the Avalanche jersey. So if it's like them pictured in a Toronto uniform with an Avalanche symbol on the side, not interested. And I think what separates the Avalanche collection from the Kraken collection is years. I mean, the Avalanche have been around a lot longer, so there's that. But we have managed to put in 23. The downside, though, is you do still see a lot of holes, which we're kind of working on remedying that. The problem, though, and I don't know if you really want to call this a problem, is there's a lot of Avalanche game used memorabilia slash auto slash combination of all that out there. So, and a lot of it too is named Forsberg, Sakic, Waugh, Bork. If you're looking to fill your collection with commons, kind of what we're starting to do here. There's that. There's also where we throw some of the double Duchesnes when we come into them. But again, there are some years that have many and some years that have none. But again, we're working on that. It'll get to a point where there's at least a card in every year when it comes to the Avalanche collection. As it stands right now, 21-22 has the most, but it's rookies. And I mean, not that that's a bad thing. It adds to the numbers. It's just a matter of when we get to a point of, is it going to be something spectacular, something we like? We'll get to that. I mean, I've got my eye on a few things that I remember growing up with, or at least, it was a set I bought at the time, and I'm coming into those cards, or at least I'm looking at those cards now, and it's like, I might just get them. But that's the collections as it stands right now. Let's talk about some goals. So really thinking about what do I want to see the card collections at this time next year. And this is my official goals for every collection the wife and I are working on. Because it'll sound like this. For the Kraken collection, I want to be over 100. I don't care how over 100 I am. I want to be over 100. I at least want to make that Kraken at 100 video. But I would also love to see some of those 100 come through trade. I mean, sure, buying my collection is nice. I at least know what I'm coming into, but I'd like to at least trade some cards into this collection. For the Duchesne collection, I'd love to see it at 400. I'm itching to make that Duchesne at 400 video, and I want to see a collection hit Varley territory. And when I say Varley territory, like I said, I don't remember what I ended off at when I stopped collecting Varley, when I did the Great Purge. But I remember being in the 400s. So if we can get Duchesne closer to like 450, maybe 425, that'd be pretty impressive in my mind. For the Kraken Young Guns, I at least want to have the primary version of every Young Gun up to next year, the end of next year. I want a Beniers, I want a Wright, I want a Cartier, I want whatever else they got out there. At least the primary versions. I mean, if I don't have all the canvases, if I don't have the exclusives or the deluxe or the whatevers, I'm not gonna be upset. But as long as I have the primaries, that's a good start. For McKinnon, I'd love to see it at 150. I wouldn't even be upset if we were closer to 175 at this time next year. But at the same time, I understand it's also McKinnon, so whatever you come into is whatever you come into. Just don't be upset if it's not something that isn't base or parallel insert. There's a lot of them, and those actually still have some value too, and it will boost your numbers, but that's what you're coming into. For Makar, I'd like to be at 50. I think that's a good goal for a collection of Makar's stature. I mean, the fact that we have a game used in there is pretty impressive. I'm not going to lie about that. But I think 50 is a good number for a Makar collection to be at this time next year. And then for the Avalanche collection, I think 50 is a good number. I think 100 is even a good number. if it's a case of being filled by common game used and common autographs, I'm not going to be bothered by that. I mean, there'll be no Avalanche collection video at 50. It'll only go straight to 100, so it gives me some time to work on the Avalanche collection if we decide that, you know, it's worth working on. Like I said, I mean, we're not looking for anything flashy at this point. We're just looking to build the numbers, and let's see if we can't keep that Avalanche collection up with the Kraken collection. But time will tell on this one, right? Well, that's essentially the goals for the personal collections that I'm working on, be it mine or or Melissa's. I mean, hopefully I'm a little bit more active when it comes to hockey cards as a whole, whether it be trading or building up my pages or whatever. I'd hope to be a little more active this year, or at least next year, sorry. You know, hopefully there's some box breaks in there. I would imagine there'll at least be a blaster or 3 in there, but we'll see when we cross that bridge, right? Either way. So that was another episode of Trev's Trade Page. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you stuck around to this point. And if you have, hey, that's a great thing. You should consider subscribing to this point. I mean, we're trying to make that 100 push, so let's make it happen. We've got a long way to go, but either way, it's fun to make this video. It's fun to go over my collections and see, hopefully, if I'm realistic in some of my numbers or if I'm just shooting out my butt on this one. But either way, we'll see where we're at this time next year. But if you like this video, give me that thumbs up. If you want to, you know where that subscribe button is. You know it'll help. It'll make you feel good, and you know I'm all for it. So check that out. But either way, in the meantime, if you're looking for videos from the Trev, data.